Welcome to the channel. This is the spiritual samurai scribe. It's just one of those days where you wake up in the morning from a dream that forces you to revisit certain things, and you ever had those dreams where you're confronting certain individuals, certain people that you might have thought that might have had your back, or at least you expected them to. And it's almost like the dream forces you to confront the thing that you probably already knew deep down, but you did not want to really acknowledge that this could be true, that the people that you thought cared about you, turns out that they didn't really care about you like you thought they did. And so in this morning, I woke up from a dream, and it revealed certain things to me. And, I try not to get lost in these dreams, because I know that when you have a lot of when you have a lot going on in your subconscious mind, especially if you have past traumas and you have so many different emotions and so much information that is within your psyche that can be painful. It can make you angry. It can make you sad. The first thing that I do when I wake up from a dream that makes me angry, makes me feel very negative, is I try to ground myself. I ground myself, and I have like a drink of water, just sit down, breathing, have some breakfast, try to eat, go for a walk. I actually did that this morning, just a short walk, come back home, and you start to feel just a little bit better, and I told my significant other about the dream as well, so that helps too. Or writing it down as well. So, of course, in this video, I'm not going to go into detail about it, because it's very personal, and it's one of those things where it's almost like you're having these conversations. This is the type of dream where you're having conversations, confronting certain things, and it's showing you a worst case scenario that represents how betrayed you felt by certain individuals in your life, particularly in your early years, basically, right? And I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I get lost in the feeling of rage and just pure anger, right? Because of how disturbing some of these things are. The truth is very painful, I'm just gonna say that. Right? When you confront the truth about certain people in your life from your early years and stuff, and how things happen, and how a lot of things flew over your head. There's so many things that have been suppressed from us as far as information goes. The truth of how people really felt about us, that maybe our psyche was not ready for that, for the realization that most people really most people did not have your best interests at heart. They only thought about themselves. And you were forced to care about their needs above yourself. And then you start to think, what does this sound like? This sounds like narcissism. It sounds like you've had narcissists throughout your life. People with narcissistic traits that it's almost like they expected you to carry their burdens when you were too young to even understand what the hell is happening, right? Too young to be involved in asunto de adultos, but somehow they made it your business. Yeah. A lot of you guys have had so many things robbed from you, it's not even funny. And when you wake up from a dream that forces you to revisit a very harsh reality, it slaps you in the face. And you've probably been slapped in the face before. You've been slapped in the face, maybe physically and even psychologically. Yeah, but in many different ways, right? But when you wake up from a dream like that, when you're revisiting traumatic concepts, conversations, confrontations, you wake up realizing that, you know what, you wake up with the feeling that no one ever gave a fuck about you. And you think about it, including the people that you thought cared about you, you find out they really didn't care about you like that. And I'm not going to go into detail as to how we figure this out for you guys. You guys have your own experience. I have mine. And you know. So, in this video, I just want to talk about what I do to ground myself after waking up from a dream that filled me with rage. You know, and it's crazy because I always thought that it's like you always think that you're over certain things, but sometimes it's almost like that anger just can't seem to leave. There's just certain things that you just can't help but be upset. Yeah, it's not like that's not you didn't know. That's the thing. Like, this is how you calm down. This is how I calm myself down. How I ground myself is. It's not like you didn't know. The body knew. Your nervous system knew. Every single time that you've been abused, that you went through certain things, every time you've been gaslighted, there was a time where your body felt it. Your body recognized it. That's why they have a book called The Body Keeps the Score. Yeah, it literally keeps the score. Your body remembered. The problem is that we have been gaslighted every single time. And when you get gaslighted in your childhood and you get older, eventually it's almost like you're in denial of the harsh reality that you faced. You don't even realize how messed up everything was for you until you get older, until you talk to someone that you trust. When I woke up from that dream that made me feel very angry for some reason, and you know, I haven't felt anger in a while, so I think that that's a test to see how far that I've made it. And I'm gonna tame that emotion by transmuting it into fuel that's gonna motivate me to continue to do what I do outside of this YouTube thing, right? What I do for me is I stimulate my mind, right? So what I do is I learn new things. There's so many different avenues where you can learn new skills. So what I'm doing is I'm applying this energy that is this negative energy. I'm going to convert it into a motivational fuel. You know, just constantly keep your mind stimulated. And the reason why I push myself the way that I do is because, you know, you were made to feel like you were less than. And the thing about being treated like a scapegoat, or the thing about being treated like you're less than, is that it teaches you, it's almost like it pushes you into that position of, like, you lose motivation in life. That's what that does. Going through narcissistic abuse in your early years causes you to lose motivation. You don't think you're good enough for anything. You don't think you're good enough for a healthy relationship. You don't think that you're smart enough to embark on a journey that can really challenge your mind and really stimulate it. And you never know how far you can go if you don't try it. But you have this thing where you don't even want to bother trying because of how low your energy is, because of how much they have been really taking from you psychologically and mentally. And that's just taken from you, but it's the fact that you have not been poured into. You were barely poured into. Right, barely anyone poured into you. And then guess what? They had the nerve to have all these low expectations of you and thinking that you're not going to be nothing, and just going around telling everyone how much of a failure and a loser you're going to be when you get old. I know what that feels like, because I was in that position. So I'm not just talking out of my ass. Like, I have been there. I feel it right now. When I woke up from that dream, I felt it. It's a reoccurring theme. You know, certain themes are just reoccurring. And it's almost like they really try so hard to take our energy. And that's the type of dream that tries to manipulate your way of looking at reality. But at the same time, it's like they use the harsh truth to bend your mind into going back to where you were before when you were depressed, right? Because there was a time where I was very depressed. I had no motivation. I had nothing. I really, because I knew that I didn't belong in this world. And when you feel like you don't belong in this world, you know, like you fall into this downward spiral without wisdom, without the positive energy, without the fuel. A person eventually does collapse. You know, they do, and it's a sad thing. And we don't want that to happen. You know, that's not going to happen with me, and that's not going to happen with any of you that continue to persevere, continue on with whatever path that you're on. You know, you keep learning your skills, whatever that is. You know, you're not too, you know, just because people thought less of you doesn't mean that you can't do more. And one of the greatest things you could ever do in your life is become the one person that accomplishes way more than those that look down on you. And I'm pretty much already there. In so many different ways, you know. And I still feel like I have more to do. I feel like I have way more to do. And that's how I look at it. That's why I said look at it as motivation, because that's what I did. I look at it as motivation because of the fact that there's certain accomplishments that I've made in my life, both educationally, psychologically, spiritually, in those ways. One of the greatest things you could ever do is accomplish more than all those who look down on you. Right? The people from the past that didn't think much of you. The people in the past that thought that you were going to always be a bum. That you weren't. I don't know why they thought that. Why did they think that? You ever ask yourself that? Like, why did they think so less of you? What gave them the confidence to think that you would be a failure in life? Sometimes I wonder, did they put a spell on you? Or is it the word curses that they've been spreading? Because name smearing, having low expectations of someone, not expecting the best from a certain individual, scapegoating that certain individual, whatever. It's like that does affect a person's energy. You know, it lowers it. It's almost like they were betting on your failure. They were expecting it. It's almost like, did they really want it? Like, did they desire it? Did it make them feel good at the thought that you would remain beneath them? But come to find out that you end up rising way above them in so many different ways. And all because you decided to heal. All because you chose God. Because you chose to walk in truth. You chose to walk in the narrow path, which forces you to deny the flesh as much as you can. Right? And then even when you fell, of course, they're going to highlight the times when you fell. You know, the times when you were stumbling. Yeah, they're going to definitely talk about that. But what they don't want to talk about or acknowledge is when you overcome every single thing that you've encountered in your life. You had a lot of challenges. You were met up with so many different things. It's like Diablo laid up so many different traps for us. Yes, we were in positions where, man, it's like it was just soulless individuals nearly everywhere. You know, nearly everywhere. And somehow we have to maintain righteousness and integrity, which, yeah, we have done that. One thing that we struggle with is, you know, at one point in our life, you know, we might have had some things with our anger, which anger is not always a bad thing, because when you have righteous wrath, you have every right to be upset at the things that you were put through, the things that you've been through that you didn't deserve to go through. So that's why you practice self-compassion, right? And the fact that you eventually mastered how to emotionally regulate, which that's one thing that's a huge accomplishment of mine, right? See, when people talk about accomplishments, they don't really think about the personal growth aspect, the behavioral aspect, the fact that you were placed in a position where you literally had it was a very slim chance for you to come out the way that you did right now as an empowered individual, as a child of God, and still having the light within you. You know how powerful it is to still carry that light? And you know what? They don't have to believe it. But honestly, it gets to a point where it's so undeniable right now. Like, our light is so undeniable at this moment that you just have to blind to not acknowledge. You have to be blind to not acknowledge it. And that's fine. They don't have to acknowledge it, because as long as you have the acknowledgement of the Most High, it really doesn't matter what these people think. They can look down on you. At this point, looking down on you, it just looks stupid, right? Especially when you've accomplished way more than them. You know, not just spiritually, but even professionally too. Yeah, we could take it there. Yeah, professionally too. Yeah. Since that's what the world cares about, right? And you're a multi-skilled, multi-talented, creative, intelligent, intellectual, spiritual. Yeah. We have all these things going for ourselves. And even if you feel like you're not quite there yet, that means the journey is still going on. There's still a lot that you can do, and you take your time. You know, don't let no one rush you. Don't let no one make you feel like it's too late. No, it's not too late, right? It's only too late when you're not alive, but you're alive. If you're listening to this right now, then that means that you're still alive. So that means that you still have plenty of time to really treat yourself right. You know, self-improve, make your life the way you want it. And that the best way to do that is going no contact with every single narcissist in your life. And just going in with it, you know, walk with God through your journey. The way I look at it, I've already won. And a lot of you guys listening, you already won too. And if you still haven't reached the finish line, then you're in the process of winning. And as long as you maintain integrity throughout your path, you don't lose yourself. You keep your soul intact. You remember who you are. You continue. You're going to get there. You are going to get there, you know, especially on a spiritual level, on a psychological level. Once you've mastered emotional regulation, once you learn how to love yourself, after all those years of being nearly psychologically destroyed in so many different ways from so many different events, you know that you are winning if you're able to find a way when you're able to find a way to maintain peace within yourself and not letting that anger turn you into something crazy. Because what I did this morning is I woke up, I felt a lot of anger. And like I said, I haven't felt anger in a while. So I know they're trying to pull me back down into a low vibration, back to where I was before, a long time ago. And guess what? They're not getting away with that, because what I did is, you know, I already told you what I did. But I'm making this video. What I'm doing is I'm making this video. I'm transmuting it in real time. Transmuting the energy in real time. They can't stop it. They can't stop the good energy from flowing, because I have something to look forward to. You know, I have things going for myself. And when you have things going for yourself, when you have something to look forward to, you think twice before you do something stupid. You think twice before you think about having a very shitty day overall. I refuse to have a shitty day. I'm going to have a great day. I'm going to have an amazing day. And I don't care who tries to ruin it. They're going to ruin their own selves in attempting to ruin my mood. You know, because you know what people hate? You know what toxic people hate the most is when they see how unbothered you are. You know, they're trying to bother you constantly throughout the day. And then they see how unbothered you look. The fact that you could care less what they're talking about. The fact that you're just, you know, they have no power over you. And when you have that, when you realize how much how much they really rely on us. They rely on us to react to their bullshit so that we can make them feel good. Think about that for a second. That just highlights how powerful we are, how powerful our emotions and our reaction really is, because that way they have someone to blame. They have someone to, point the finger at, and they can feel like they're not at fault and all that stuff. People are weird like that. People are really, really weird. But when you keep smiling, when you keep, you get to a point eventually that your vibration, as it increases, you get to a point where you are so unbothered by all the bullshit around you. And that's why it's very important to stay grounded when you wake up in the morning. It starts in the morning, in your morning routine. It all starts at that moment. That determines how your day is going to be. More than breakfast. Yeah. The most important meal of the day is not only breakfast time, but not only what you feed yourself physically, but what you feed yourself spiritually as well. That's important. When you wake up, what do you think about? So that is a good thing to think about. Shifting your perspective as soon as you wake up to making sure that you don't allow those dreams to become intrusive thoughts that bring you back down. No, we're going to shatter that. And another thing too, we're going to ground ourselves by saying, hey, like, dreams can mean a lot of things. It really can. But when it has to do with past traumas, the past, anything from the past, especially if it's not good, a lot of times from my understanding, that's just your mind just processing everything. It's like and of course it's like it makes you mad, and then it's understanding how the mind works. It helps a lot too. And yes, you could even add in the spiritual layer, which people don't do that. But the spiritual layer, the way I look at it is, it's almost like the enemy is trying to pull our energy down because we are elevating at this moment, It's intended to pull your energy back down because that's what the world wants, That's what the low vibrational world wants you to be, just like it. Low vibrational, mindless and soulless. But we're not going to let that happen because we're too strong at this point. With all the stuff that we have already been through, no, we are not going to stop growing. We're not going to stop evolving. We're going to continue to move ahead. We're going to continue to elevate regardless of who likes it, who doesn't like it. We don't care.